Let's start with a wild thought. Have you ever really, truly stopped to think about, well, you? The sheer scale of what makes you, you. Because when you do, it is absolutely mind-boggling.
I mean, your body is made up of trillions of cells. Trillions! Think of them like these microscopic little factories, each one buzzing away, doing its own specific job just to keep the whole operation, you, running smoothly.
But that brings up a huge question, right? How does each one of those little factories know what to do? How does a muscle cell know it's supposed to contract? Or a nerve cell know it needs to fire off a signal? Where are they getting their orders from?
Well, it all comes down to one thing. It all starts with the blueprint. DNA. Yep. Tucked away inside pretty much every single one of those trillions of cells is the master instruction manual. The one that tells it how to build you and how to operate you. So, all right, let's dive in and see how this works.
So we're going to stick with this idea of a factory, okay? Because it's the perfect way to picture it. The DNA, that's the master blueprint. It has all the plans. And it's kept super safe, locked away in the factory's main office, what we call the nucleus.
So what does this blueprint even look like? Well, it's this famous twisted ladder shape, right? The double helix. The rungs of that ladder are built from just 4 chemical letters, A, T, C, and G. But here's the absolute key, the magic rule that makes everything else work. A always pairs with T, and C always pairs with G. No exceptions. That simple little rule, that's the secret sauce.
All right, so what happens when business is booming and the factory needs to expand? When one cell needs to divide and become 2. You can't just rip the master blueprint in half. That would be a disaster. No, you need to make a perfect, complete copy for the new factory. And this amazing process is called DNA replication. The goal here is super simple, but incredibly important. Make sure every new cell gets its own 100% perfect copy of that master blueprint. And it happens in 3 really elegant steps. First, an enzyme, think of it as a specialized worker, comes in and just unzips the DNA right down the middle, separating the 2 strands. Then, another worker, the master builder, scoots along each of those separated strands. It reads the letters A, T, C, G, and grabs the matching partner from a supply pile. And remember that rule? It puts a T opposite every A and a G opposite every C. And just like that, you've got 2 perfect, identical copies of the original blueprint. There's actually a pretty cool name for this: semi-conservative replication. Why semi-conservative? Well, because each new DNA molecule conserves 1/2 of the original and then builds the other half new. So it's half old, half new. It's just a beautiful, super efficient way to make sure the copy is perfect every single time. Okay, so that's how you copy the entire blueprint when you're making a whole new cell. But what about the day-to-day stuff? The factory doesn't always need the plans for the whole building. Sometimes it just needs the instructions for one single part, like one specific machine, which in our case is a protein. And you're definitely not going to take that priceless master blueprint out of the clean head office and onto the messy, chaotic factory floor. No way. It's way too valuable. It has to stay protected inside the nucleus. So what do? You send a memo, a work order, and that's exactly what the cell does. This process is called transcription. The cell makes a quick, temporary, disposable copy of just the one little section of DNA it needs, a single gene. It's like making a photocopy of just one page from that giant blueprint. And that little photocopy is called messenger RNA, or mRNA for short. Now, here's a fun little quirk. This RNA message speaks almost the exact same language as the DNA blueprint. There's just one little letter swap. Instead of the letter T, RNA uses a letter called U for uracil. So when the DNA says A, the RNA copy writes down a U instead of a T. It's a tiny little dialect change, but it's super important for what comes next. All right, so our work order, the mRNA, has been printed. Now it's time to leave the head office and head out onto the main factory floor, the cytoplasm. Let's see how this message actually gets read and turned into a real, functioning machine, a protein. Okay, to get this job done, we need to meet the assembly line crew. First, you've got the message itself, the mRNA work order. Then you have the ribosome. That's the actual machine that's going to read the work order. And then you have the delivery trucks, these little guys called transfer RNA, or tRNA. Their job is to go get the raw materials, the building blocks called amino acids, and bring them to the ribosome.
So check this out. The ribosome clamps onto that mRNA message and starts chugging along, reading the instructions 3 letters at a time. Each 3-letter word is a signal for a specific part. As it reads a word, the exact right tRNA delivery truck shows up, carrying the 1 amino acid it called for. The ribosome then grabs that amino acid and links it to the one before it, building a chain. It just keeps doing this, read, deliver, link, until, bam, the job's done and you have a finished protein chain.
Okay, so we've just walked through this whole incredible, complex system for building proteins, right? These are the machines that do almost everything in our cells. So you'd think, logically, that most of your DNA is just pages and pages of these protein blueprints. But what if I told you that's not the case? How much of your DNA do you think is actually the blueprint for a protein?
The answer is going to blow your mind. It's only about 1.5%. Yeah. Just 1.5%, that's it. For a long time, scientists had no idea what the other 98.5% was for, and they literally called it junk DNA. But we know so much better now. That junk is actually the factory's management team. It's the logistics department, the quality control. It's the part of the code that tells the genes when to turn on or off, how much protein to make. It regulates the whole operation. It's anything but junk.
Okay. But here's where this story gets really, really profound. Because this whole system, this entire operating manual, this language of life, it isn't just for you.
What we're looking at here is one of the deepest and most beautiful truths in all of biology. The genetic code, that dictionary that translates the mRNA words into amino acid parts, is essentially the same for every single living thing on Earth. The 3-letter word that tells your cell to add a certain amino acid is the exact same word that tells a tree cell to do it, or a mushroom's, or a bacterium's.
So think about what that means. It means you could take the specific instruction, the gene, for building a protein out of, say, a common bacterium, and you could pop it into one of your own human cells, and your cell would read it perfectly. It would build that bacterial protein without a single mistake. Because at the most fundamental level, you both speak the exact same language. So I want to leave you with this final thought. If every living organism, from the tiniest microbe deep in the ocean to the biggest blue whale, all run on the very same basic operating system, what does that shared language tell us? What does it suggest about the single origin of all life on Earth? It's this incredible, powerful evidence that we all come from a single common ancestor. We are all part of one immense family tree, and the story of that family is written in the simple, beautiful, universal language of DNA.